Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruelest thing Zarina did wasn't the insults, the hotel charge, or even ending the engagement. It was this: she tried to turn you into her permanent safety net, then mocked you for having a heart, while quietly setting you up to be tied to the fallout of her business, using your lease, your space, and your card history. My fiancée, Zarina Rowe, looked me dead in my face in our apartment in Aurora, Colorado, and said, "You're not loyal. You're just scared no one else will choose you." Then she laughed like it was a clever joke, like my whole heart was some cheap thing she picked up on clearance. She didn't say it in anger. She said it calm, casual, like she'd been holding in for months and finally got bored of pretending I was worth respect. When I didn't respond fast enough, she added, "Don't look hurt. You should be grateful I'm being honest." Here's how it happened. I used to think loyalty was a kind of love you proved in small ways. Showing up, paying on time, taking the long way home so she wouldn't have to walk in the cold, staying gentle even when the world wasn't. I thought if I did enough right things, the right future would meet me halfway. Zarina watched me do all of it like a person watching a faucet drip, annoyed, entitled, and certain the water would never stop. And the more I tried to keep our life steady, the more she treated me like I was lucky she didn't leave. We met in Denver at a coworker's birthday dinner. I was the quiet guy who showed up early, brought a small gift, and helped stack plates when people started drifting to the door. Zarina was loud in a way that pulled attention without asking permission. She kept her nails perfect, her hair laid, her laugh sharp like a snap. When she gave me her number, she did it like she was handing me an opportunity. I ignored that feeling because I liked her confidence. I thought it would balance my calm. I didn't realize confidence can be a mask for cruelty. The first year was good enough to fool me. She'd send me voice notes, singing off-key. She'd make jokes about my dad tendencies because I kept receipts and folded towels like a store display. When my car battery died in a grocery store parking lot, she came with jumper cables and a smirk and said, "See, you need me." I laughed with her because I didn't understand the difference between playful and possessive. I didn't know some people don't joke to connect. They joke to remind you who has power. When she got accepted into a cosmetology program, I was proud. I took her out to a nice dinner in Cherry Creek and told her, honestly, that she'd be great. She leaned across the table and said, "Of course I will." Then she added, "And you'll be the man who helped me become somebody." I heard it as a compliment. I didn't catch the part where she separated herself from me. In her mind, I wasn't somebody. I was a tool, a stepping stone with a pulse. Her mother, Rosalind Rowe, didn't like me from the beginning. Not because I was rude or irresponsible, because I was quiet, and quiet doesn't impress people who confuse noise with value. Rosalind would look me over at family dinners like she was checking for stains. She'd ask what I did for work, and when I said I was in logistics, warehouse scheduling, and inventory controls, she'd make a face like I sold loose batteries from a trunk. She'd say, dragging the sound out. "So you move boxes." Zarina would sit there smiling, letting her mother shave me down. Every visit turned into little tests. Rosalind would forget my name. She'd call me Marcus one week, Malcolm the next, like my identity was optional. Once, she asked if I was the kind of man who gets jealous. I said no, I just believe in honesty. She laughed and said, "That's what jealous men say when they're trying to hide it." Zarina didn't defend me. She'd just sip her drink and glance at me like she was waiting to see if I'd embarrass myself. I started swallowing my discomfort like pills. The proposal should have been my warning. I planned it at a quiet overlook in Red Rocks, not flashy, just the kind of place where you can hear your own heart. Zarina said yes fast, but the first thing she asked was, "Is it real gold?" Then she asked, "What car are we taking to take pictures?" I told myself she was excited, that she just wanted it to be special. But when we took engagement photos, she kept barking at the photographer, Daniela King, like Daniela was a servant. The funniest part was Zarina blinked at my favorite shot and looked like a raccoon caught in headlights. I teased her gently. She snapped, "Delete that." We moved into an apartment in Aurora because it was close to my job and her school. The place wasn't fancy. Carpet that always looked slightly tired, cabinets that squeaked, but it was ours. I paid the deposit. I put the lease in my name because my credit was stronger. I set up the internet, utilities, and renter's insurance. I like building a stable base. Zarina liked decorating the base with expensive touches. She'd buy throw pillows that cost more than groceries. When I questioned it, she'd say, "Stop acting like my father." I became this steady, one in the way people say like it's a compliment, but it can turn into a trap. When her car needed repairs, I covered it. When she said her tuition payment was short, I filled the gap. When she wanted her lashes done the day before a family event, I paid because she promised she'd pay me back. She didn't. If I brought it up, she'd say, "You're counting pennies?" The more I gave, the more she treated giving like my job. And when I finally started feeling tired, she treated my exhaustion like a flaw in my character. The suffering didn't start with one big betrayal. It started with the constant small humiliations that made me second-guess myself. Zarina would joke about how I dressed. She'd tell me my laugh sounded nervous. She'd tease that I was safe, like I was a backup plan a woman chooses after she's done being impressed by other men. One time at a cookout in Stapleton, her friends asked how we met. Zarina said, "He basically chased me until I got tired of saying no." I hadn't. I asked her out once. She said yes, but I smiled anyway because the truth felt too weak to defend. I tried to fix things with more effort. I planned date nights. I brought her lunch at school. I listened to her complain about classmates like it was a full-time job. I even tried to be fun the way she wanted fun. Loud, impulsive, showy. Once I surprised her with a weekend at a hotel in Colorado Springs. I booked it, packed snacks, and even brought her favorite sparkling water. She spent most of the time on her phone. When I asked her to put it down, she said, "Don't start. You're not about to ruin my mood." That sentence sat in my chest like a rock. Around that time, a new name started showing up. Kendrick Vale, her cousin's boyfriend, the kind of man who talks with his whole chest but never says anything solid. He wore designer belts with scuffed shoes. He called everyone boss and talked about investors like investors were people he knew personally. Zarina started bringing him up in conversation like he was a celebrity. "Kendrick says I should start my own beauty supply line," she'd tell me. Kendrick knows the game. I met Kendrick once, and he shook my hand like he was testing my grip. Then he looked past me like I wasn't part of the room. The more Kendrick showed up, the more Zarina changed. She started dressing like she had somewhere important to be, even when she didn't. She'd disappear for meetings that didn't have details. She'd talk about scaling and brand identity and drops, repeating phrases like she learned a new language and wanted to prove she could speak it. When I asked questions, she'd roll her eyes and say, "You wouldn't get it." The distance between us grew, and she acted like my confusion was my fault, like I was supposed to clap while being shut out of my own life. One night, I came home after a long shift and found Kendrick in our living room with a whiteboard leaned against my wall. My wall. My lease. My electricity. He had markers spread out like he was conducting a seminar. Zarina sat on the couch, smiling like a proud student. Kendrick said, "Bro, we are building something real. This is a legacy." Then he pointed to a messy diagram and said, "We're going to run orders through here. Use the crib as a base." I stared at him. "Through here." Zarina cut in fast. "Don't start acting weird." I told her I wasn't comfortable with strangers coming in and out, and I definitely wasn't comfortable with business inventory in our apartment. I said it calmly, like an adult. Kendrick laughed and said, "That's why y'all be stuck. Too many rules." Zarina leaned back and said, "See what I mean? You're scared. You always need control." I said, "This isn't control. These are boundaries." Zarina smiled like she'd been waiting for that word. "Boundaries is what people say when they're insecure," she replied. "Don't drag me down because you don't believe in yourself." That's when she hit me with a line that changed everything. "You're not loyal," she said. "You're just scared no one else will choose you." Rosalind was on speakerphone, laughing in the background like it was a family comedy special. Kendrick snorted. Zarina looked at me like she'd thrown a dart, and it landed right where she wanted. My face got hot. My throat tightened. I wanted to say something sharp, something that would cut. But I'd spent years practicing being the bigger person. I just stood there, and in that silence, I felt something in me finally start to detach. The next day at work, I kept messing up simple things, misreading a pallet count, forgetting a pickup time. My coworker Deshaun Mercer pulled me aside near the loading bay and asked if I was good. Deshaun was older, calm, the kind of man who didn't talk much but always noticed. I almost lied. Then the truth spilled out in pieces. How Zarina talked to me, how her family treated me, how I felt like a guest in my own relationship. Deshaun didn't judge me. He just said, "Respect is not a bonus, Malik. It's rent. If she won't pay for it, you can't live there." That night, I tried one last conversation. I told Zarina, quietly, that what she said hurt me. I told her I felt humiliated. She didn't even blink. She was scrolling through her phone and said, "You want a tissue?" When I asked if she even cared, she shrugged. "I'm not responsible for your feelings," she said. "If you were more confident, you wouldn't take everything personal." Then she smiled like she was proud of that sentence. "Don't be dramatic." I realized she wasn't going to change because she didn't think she was wrong. And if someone doesn't think they're wrong, your pain becomes an inconvenience. 2 days later, Rosalind accidentally sent a group text to Zarina, her aunties, and me. It was meant for them. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. "He's stable, that's all," Rosalind wrote. "Let her get what she needs and upgrade." The message hit like a slap. Not because it was surprising, because it confirmed what I'd been feeling in my bones. I showed Zarina the text. She glanced at it and said so. I said, "Your mother thinks I'm a stepping stone." Zarina replied, "Maybe you should act like more than one." I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling while Zarina slept like a person with no conscience. The apartment felt smaller. The air felt heavier. My mind replayed every moment I ignored. The jokes, the dismissals, the way she accepted my giving but rejected my humanity. In the morning, she kissed her own reflection in the bathroom mirror, literally, then walked out. I stood in the kitchen and looked at the fridge magnets from our road trips, and it hit me. I've been building a home with someone who was already planning her exit, and she wanted to leave with my foundation under her feet. I did something boring, something unromantic, something that saved me. On my lunch break, I drove to my bank in Denver, sat with a loan officer named Patrice Linwood, and asked, "What am I legally responsible for, and what do I need to do today?" Patrice didn't look at me like I was weak. She looked at me like I was smart. She asked calm questions. What accounts were shared, what bills were my name, what auto pays existed. She told me to document everything. Quietly, she said, "Don't announce a plan to someone who benefits from you being confused." That week, I opened a new account and moved my direct deposit. I canceled auto pays that weren't essential. I made a spreadsheet of every bill, every due date, every account owner. I changed passwords. I turned on alerts. I didn't do it to punish Zarina. I did it to protect myself. Because once you realize someone sees you as a resource, you stop expecting fairness. You start expecting extraction. And I wasn't going to be drained and then blamed for being empty. If she wanted to treat love like a transaction, fine. I was going to keep receipts. I also started gathering the paper trail I used to ignore. I saved the group text from Rosalind. I screenshot messages where Zarina asked me to pay just this one thing. I kept the leased documents. I checked our joint card statements and highlighted anything that didn't make sense. I didn't feel proud doing it. I felt sad, like I was preparing for a storm I still wished would miss us. But every time I hesitated, I heard Zarina's laugh in my head. "Scared no one else will choose you." I promised myself I would never let someone talk to me like that again. The little comedy of my life was how quickly people get bold when they think you're trapped. Kendrick started showing up more. He'd sit on my couch, feet on my coffee table, talking about brand partnerships. One night he said, completely serious, "Once we scale, we might have to rotate the bins. Like 1 week here, 1 week for me." I stared at him and said, "You don't even rotate your socks." He looked offended. Zarina laughed, and me, not him. Like I was the clown and Kendrick was the visionary. That's when I realized she didn't just disrespect me privately. She enjoyed watching other people disrespect me too. Zarina created a business plan out of thin air. She ordered cheap packaging online. She filled our hallway closet with boxes of hair products and knockoff accessories. The apartment started smelling like synthetic perfume. She told me I should be proud. I told her I didn't agree to this. She said, "You don't own me." I said, "I own the lease." She narrowed her eyes. "Don't threaten me," she said. I wasn't threatening her. I was stating facts. But facts feel like threats to people who rely on you not noticing reality. The emotional suffering got heavier in the quiet moments. Coming home to someone who talks at you instead of to you. Paying bills with a woman who calls you insecure for asking what you're paying for. Sitting beside your fiancé and feeling lonelier than you ever felt single. Zarina would cuddle up when she wanted something. New shoes, a ride, help with the payment. Then she'd switch back to cold the moment she got it. I started feeling like a vending machine with feelings. Put in kindness, receive demand. Put in money, receive disdain. Then the hotel charge appeared. On our joint card, a hotel in Colorado Springs, 2 nights. The amount wasn't huge, but it wasn't small either. My stomach dropped. I asked Serena about it while she was doing her makeup. She didn't stop applying lip gloss. "We're trip," she said. I couldn't help it. I let out a laugh that sounded like disbelief. Zarina turned slowly, eyes sharp. "What's funny?" I said. "You've never traveled for work." She shrugged. "New opportunities." Then she leaned close and said, soft and cruel, "You don't have options, Malik. Remember that." I didn't yell. I didn't slam doors. I didn't call names. I just went very still. There's a kind of quiet that happens when your heart finally accepts what your mind has been avoiding. That quiet is not peace. It's surrender to the truth. I nodded like I believed her. I played the scared role perfectly. I apologized for overreacting. I asked how I could support her. Zarina's shoulders relaxed like she'd tightened a leash and felt it hold. She liked me best when I was small. Meanwhile, I kept protecting myself. I documented dates. I checked the lease terms. I learned what I could do if I needed to end the living arrangement. I called a legal clinic in Denver and asked general questions without giving details that could tie me up. I didn't want revenge. I wanted out, clean and safe. The funniest thing was how Zarina started acting sweeter once she thought she'd won. She'd call me babe again. She'd sit on my lap. She'd say, "See, this is the Malik I fell for." As if my dignity was a phase I needed to grow out of. A week later, she sat me down like she was my manager. She printed a sheet titled Budget Reset. She said we should pause the wedding until I prove I can lead. Then she said Kendrick was going to help her launch the business using our apartment as a base and my car for deliveries. My car, she said like it was obvious. I asked what I got out of it. Zarina smiled. "A wife who's about to level up," she said. When I asked why her level up required my resources, she snapped, "Because that's what men do." That night, she posted a picture of herself with a caption about choosing yourself. She didn't tag me, but she wanted me to see it. She left the ring on the kitchen counter while she showered, like a reminder that even our engagement was something she could put down whenever she wanted. I stared at the ring and realized she didn't see it as a promise. She saw it as a trophy she could pawn for sympathy. I picked it up and set it back in a box. Then I did something petty but harmless. I put that raccoon blink engagement photo back on the fridge, front and center. If I was going to suffer, I deserved a small laugh. The breaking point came in a quiet, humiliating way. Zarina invited Rosalind over without telling me. I came home to find them at our table, eating food I paid for, discussing my life like I wasn't a person. Rosalind said, "He's not marriage material unless he can provide without complaining." Zarina nodded, like she was taking notes. I stood there in my work clothes, tired, and asked, "Why are we talking about me like I'm not here?" Rosalind smiled sweetly and said, "Because you don't talk much anyway." Zarina smirked. "He's sensitive," she said like I was a child. That night, I packed a small bag and went to my friend Janelle Price's place in Lakewood. Janelle was the kind of friend who didn't ask a million questions. She just handed you water and made room. I sat on her couch, staring at the wall, like my brain needed time to catch up to my life. Janelle said, "Are you safe?" I nodded. She said, "Are you done?" I didn't answer right away, but my silence was an answer. Because love doesn't look like humiliation. A future doesn't look like a woman training you to accept disrespect. The next morning, I went back home to talk. Zarina wasn't there, but Kendrick was alone, moving boxes like he owned the place. He looked at me and said, "Oh, you're back." I asked where Zarina was. Kendrick shrugged. Meeting. Then he smiled like he had inside information. She is about to cut dead weight. My chest tightened. I asked him to leave. He laughed. You can't kick me out, he said. I pointed to the lease folder on the shelf and said, watch me. He rolled his eyes and left, but not before muttering, you soft, bro. When Zarina came home, she didn't ask where I'd been. She didn't care. She said, we need to talk. I sat at the table. She stood, arms crossed like she was the judge. This isn't working, she said. You're holding me back. I asked if she was ending our engagement. She smiled, satisfied. Yes, she said. I need a man with confidence. Then she added, don't cry. It's embarrassing. I didn't cry in front of her. But inside, something collapsed. Not because I wanted her. Because I couldn't believe I'd worked so hard to earn love from someone who never planned to give it. She started packing while I was at work, like she wanted to control the narrative. I came home to open drawers and empty hangers. The TV was gone. The air fryer was gone. The cheap blender that only worked if you held the lid down? Gone too. Like she wanted to take every symbol of shared life, even if it was broken. On the counter, she left the ring like it was trash. On the fridge, right under the raccoon photo, she left a sticky note. Try not to beg the next woman. No apology. No gratitude. No humanity. Just a final insult, polished and cruel. The next few days were heavy. I moved through work like a ghost. I ate because I knew I should, not because I wanted to. At night, the apartment felt hollow, like it was echoing. I'd sit on the floor because the couch was gone, staring at the wall, replaying every moment I ignored because I wanted the relationship to work. The worst part wasn't her leaving. It was how she left, like I was nothing. Like love was a game she won. And because she showed no remorse, my brain kept looking for the remorse as proof I mattered. It wasn't coming. On the third day after she left, my phone rang. The caller ID said business banking. My stomach dropped. The banker, Patrice Linwood, sounded polite but careful. Hi, is this Malik Brannon? We're calling about an investigation connected to an account your card was used to fund. Multiple deposits were flagged, and the account has been frozen. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Not because I was guilty, but because I understood what was happening. Zarina had used my card at the beginning to start up her business account. Now the trail was pointing back to me. Patrice asked me to come in. I didn't argue. I drove to the bank in Denver, hand steady on the wheel, even though my chest was shaking. In the lobby, I sat under bright lights and held a folder I'd prepared without knowing it would matter this much. Patrice led me to an office and asked questions. I answered with facts. I showed her screenshots, dates, the group text, proof I changed my direct deposit, proof I removed myself from shared spending before the suspicious deposits started spiking. Patrice's face tightened as she read. You did the right thing documenting, she said softly. Patrice explained carefully that the account was receiving multiple payments through apps, and people were disputing charges, claiming they paid for products they never received. The bank's system flagged it. The account froze. And because my card had funded early setup, my name was in the chain. She didn't accuse me. She warned me. This can get messy if you don't separate yourself officially, she said. I signed a statement that I was not a business partner, did not authorize any activity beyond the early personal purchase Zarina claimed was for school supplies, and wanted my information fully removed. Patrice nodded. We'll process this now. That same day, I contacted the payment apps with documentation showing my separation from Zarina and the date she moved out. I sent copies of a lease, proof she was no longer living with me, and the messages where she mentioned investor deposits. It felt surreal, like I was watching my life turn into a case file. But I stayed calm, because panic is what people like Zarina count on. They count on you being so emotional you don't protect yourself. I wasn't going to let her chaos become my prison. I wasn't going to pay for her upgrade. The next call came from Zarina. Her number lit up my screen like a flashback. I answered because I wanted to hear her voice in this new reality, just to be sure it was real. She didn't say hello. She snapped, "What did you do?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She hissed, "My account is frozen. People are calling me. Fix it, fix it." Like I was still her tool. Like my role in her mind was permanent. I told her calmly, I separated my information. That's all. She spat. You're doing this because you're bitter. No, I said. I'm doing this because you told me I have no options. So I chose myself. Zarina laughed, sharp, angry. You're pathetic, she said. You finally grow a spine when it doesn't matter. She never apologized. She never admitted she used me. She never asked if I was okay. She just listed what she needed. Money for rent, a place to store inventory, a call to Patrice, a quick transfer. When I said no, she cursed me out like I was a stranger who owed her. Then she hung up like she was the victim. A week later, I got a notice from our apartment management addressed to me. It said unauthorized business activity could violate the lease. My hands shook as I read it because I realized Zarina and Kendrick had likely been running the business through the apartment while I was still there. I called the manager, Mr. Terrence Halston, a black man with a calm voice, and explained the situation. I emailed proof she moved out, proof I never approved business operations, and proof I was removing all remaining inventory. Terrence thanked me for being proactive. We just need the unit to be compliant, he said. You're handling it. That night, I cleared the closet and found boxes Zarina left behind. Cheap packaging, fake labels, product bundles that looked like they'd been thrown together fast. It was sad more than anything. Not because I missed her, because I could see the scam forming. Big talk, quick money, no structure, no responsibility. I carried the boxes to my car and drove them to a storage facility in Commerce City, making sure the unit was in Zarina's name, not mine. I paid 1 month, my final gift, so she couldn't claim I sabotaged her by throwing her things away. Then I texted her the unit number and walked away. Karma doesn't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it arrives like paperwork. From what I heard through Janelle, Zarina tried to get a new apartment in Aurora but couldn't verify funds because her bank account was frozen. She tried to move in with Rosalind, but Rosalind's patience ran thin fast when the problem wasn't mine anymore. Kendrick, the loud boss, disappeared the moment his name got mentioned in anything official. Like smoke. Like he'd never been on my couch drawing legacy on my wall. Zarina started blowing up my phone again, not to apologize but to demand. She stayed the same, shameless. Meanwhile, my life got quiet in a way I didn't know I needed. I bought a used couch off a guy in Thornton and carried it up the stairs myself. I set up my living room with slow intention. Cheap at first, but mine. I cooked simple meals. I cleaned without resentment. I slept without hearing someone's contempt in the next room. The pain didn't vanish. Some nights, I still replayed the insults, like my brain was trying to find the moment I should have left sooner. But every morning I woke up and realized, peace is addictive. A month after the breakup, the funniest little piece of karma slid into my email. It was from a furniture store. Your return has been processed. I stared at it, confused, then laughed out loud on my new couch. Zarina had tried to return the original couch she took, using my card history. But I'd already canceled that card and updated everything. The store refunded me instead. I sat there laughing until my eyes watered. Not because the money mattered, but because it felt like the universe whispering, she can't even steal correctly anymore. The heavier karma landed later. A friend of a friend mentioned Zarina was working double shifts at a salon in Denver, angry all the time, telling anyone who'd listen that her jealous ex sabotaged her business. She never said, I used him. She never said, I lied. She never said, I hurt him. She framed herself as the star of a tragedy, she wrote. And the people who believed her were the same kind of people who would have used me too. That realization was its own freedom. I didn't need to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding me. I focused on quiet success. Not flashy, not public, just real. Deshaun helped me apply for a better role, inventory systems coordinator, because he knew I had the skills. I took a certification course at night, tired but determined. I stopped spending money trying to impress someone who didn't respect me. I paid down debt. I built savings. I got my own place in Lakewood, smaller but clean, with windows that let morning light fill the room. I didn't post about it. I didn't announce it. I just lived it. I also did something else quietly. I went to counseling. Not a group, not a community thing. Just me one-on-one, sitting across from a therapist named Dr. Nia Carmichael in Denver. Dr. Nia didn't let me romanticize my suffering. She asked hard questions. Why did I tolerate contempt? Why did I confuse endurance with love? Why did I keep proving myself to someone who never valued me? Those sessions weren't dramatic. They were steady, like learning how to breathe again after years of shallow air. The more I healed, the more I saw Zarina clearly. She didn't break me. She revealed what I needed to fix in myself. One afternoon, months later, I ran into Rosalind at a grocery store in Aurora. She saw me, and her face tightened like she swallowed something sour. I nodded politely. Rosalind didn't ask how I was. She didn't say hello. She said, "Zarina says you ruined her." I looked at her for a long second and said, "Your daughter ruined herself." Rosalind scoffed. "She was going places," she snapped. I replied, calm. "Then she should have treated people like they were human." Rosalind rolled her eyes and walked off. No remorse, just blame. I watched her go and felt nothing but relief that her voice didn't control my mood anymore. The true comeback wasn't making Zarina suffer. The true comeback was refusing to be her safety net. A year earlier, I would have rushed to fix the mess just to prove I was good. Now, when my phone buzzed with unknown numbers, I didn't panic. When someone hinted that Zarina needed help, I didn't flinch. I learned that compassion doesn't mean self-destruction. I learned that being a good man doesn't require being an available fool. I learned that my loyalty belonged to someone who treasured it, not someone who insulted it. The last time Zarina called, she sounded the same, sharp, entitled, impatient. "I need you to send me that lease copy," she said, like ordering food. I asked why. She said, "Because I'm trying to prove I live there for a business thing." I almost laughed at the audacity. I said, "No," she snapped. "You're still trying to punish me." I said, "I'm not punishing you. I'm just not saving you." Zarina went quiet for half a second, then hissed, "You were never worth it anyway." And she hung up. No remorse, just poison. That sentence used to be the kind of thing that would keep me up at night. But that night I slept, because when you've watched someone try to drain you, insult you, and then demand rescue, their insults lose power. They become background noise. I cooked dinner, washed the dishes, and sat in my living room calmly. I looked around at my quiet home, my own furniture, my own bills, my own peace, and I realized the truth that hit harder than any insult. I had options the whole time. My biggest mistake was thinking I needed her to be chosen. Karma hit Zarina hardest in the way she deserved. Not through public shame, not through a dramatic scene, but through the private collapse of the life she tried to build on disrespect. Her business didn't fail because I attacked it. It failed because it was built on lies and shortcuts. Her upgrade didn't arrive because she treated people like stepping stones. And when the consequences showed up, frozen accounts, denied applications, people demanding refunds, she had no real partner to lean on. Kendrick vanished. Rosalind blamed. And Zarina, for the first time, had to carry her own weight without using my back. The cruelest part of what she said, "No one else will choose you," turned out to be the biggest lie. Not because I ran out and found someone new to prove her wrong. I didn't. I chose myself first. I chose peace. I chose boundaries. I chose a life where respect is the minimum, not a reward you beg for. And in the quiet, personal way that mattered most, I became successful without her. Steady money, a stable home, a healed mind, and a calm heart. Zarina wanted me to believe I was unchosen. The truth is, I was simply with the wrong chooser. If this ending gave you that quiet justice feeling, subscribe, because the next story is even more brutal. And share this with someone who keeps saving people who would never save them. The end.